So let's begin. Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to MKTG 403 Electronic Marketing Essentials Session 3. In today's session, we will be focusing on the electronic marketing plan. And as usual, by the end of the session, there are certain outcomes we hope to achieve. The first one being to be able to explain the nature and importance of e-marketing planning, as well as developing an e-marketing plan. And then we will be able to understand and explain the stages in e-marketing planning, implementation, and evaluation, as well as the 3M resources as they relate to the process of e-marketing implementation. So let's get into it. Before we start, I'd like us to look at this quote by Picasso that says, "Our goals can only be reached through the vehicle of a plan, in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success." I take it again. Our goals can only be reached through the vehicle of a plan, in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success. Now, this quote summarizes, in general, the need for e-marketing planning as a subset of marketing planning and its importance in terms of being able to help us to achieve marketing success, which will ultimately contribute to overall organizational success. So with that, what is an e-marketing plan? Before we can talk about an e-marketing plan, which is the end product, we need to be able to talk about e-marketing planning, which is the process leading up to this end product. So e-marketing planning basically involves creating a blueprint, right? Like we usually have for houses, or a schema for e-marketing strategy formulation and implementation, right? So like I have mentioned, the e-marketing plan is the end product of e-marketing planning. Now, in understanding what an e-marketing plan entails, we need to be able to know the journey that leads up to getting this final document, which is the blueprint or the schema, for which we are going to use in implementing our e-marketing objectives to ensure that they are achieved and all the stakeholders involved have their needs and expectations met. Now, the e-marketing plan is normally part of the overall marketing plan of the organization because e-marketing is a subset of the general marketing strategy of a firm. So the e-marketing plan in its design and constituents has to fit into the marketing plan of the organization such that it is helping to work towards achieving the overall marketing plan, which ultimately helps to achieve the overall business goals and objectives. So the e-marketing plan does not stand alone. It takes its inspiration from the marketing plan, which takes its inspiration from the firm's overall plan that they have towards achieving their goals and success. So when we talk about e-marketing planning, we can say that it is a roadmap, right? That guides the firm in the direction that it wishes to take. Because once you decide to take a direction as a firm, you need to be able to understand what that direction is going to entail and how to be able to successfully go within that direction. So the e-marketing planning process basically helps us to set clear, realistic, and measurable objectives for our business, right? And these objectives that we set throughout the planning process will guide the delivery of the results that we have stated in these objectives, as we will measure by clear performance metrics by the end of the implementation process. So in our second lecture later on this week, we will be discussing performance metrics when it comes to e-marketing planning and which metrics we can use to be able to gauge and measure the success of our e-marketing strategies. So for today, we are going to be focusing on the planning process and the end product, which is the e-marketing plan. So let's go straight into the e-marketing plan and look at the process that we marketers go through to be able to arrive at this end product. Now, what is the nature of the e-marketing plan? We have already mentioned that the e-marketing plan is a blueprint, right, for e-marketing strategy formulation and implementation. Now, one thing we need to learn about the e-marketing plan is that it is a dynamic guiding document, meaning that once the document is prepared and created, it is not set in stone or static. It is dynamic in that the document can change and be altered at any point in time, depending on the situational factors that the e-marketer is facing and the action that they decide to take to be able to respond to the situation that they find themselves in. At the same time, it is a guiding document that links the firm's e-business strategy with its technology-driven marketing activities. Remember, we talked about the fact that technology can be applied in all aspects of the value chain and not just with e-marketing. So the aspect of the value chain that has to do with marketing and sales is what we as e-marketers are focusing on and looking at the application of technology in that specific area. So whatever e-marketing plan we come up with should be able to have a clear link with the firm's e-business strategy, such that it connects with all the other components of the value chain to be able to arrive at the ultimate end goal that the firm has in mind, right? And like I mentioned earlier, this e-marketing plan takes its inspiration from the firm's overall marketing plan, which ultimately contributes towards achieving overall business success. So that in a nutshell is the nature of the e-marketing plan. Now we ask ourselves, what is the importance of the e-marketing plan? First, we can talk about the fact that it serves as a roadmap to guide the firm in the direction it wishes to take. Without direction, everyone will be lost because you will not know where to go, what to do, how to go about it, and whether or not to know whether what you are doing is right or wrong. So this e-marketing plan sets as a roadmap for the e-marketer to be able to guide them, knowing the direction that they want to go to, being the overall outcome that they want to achieve by implementing that particular strategy or course of action that's chosen. At the same time, too, the e-marketing plan is important because it is often required when you are seeking funding. Remember that marketing is one arm of the organization and plays a specific role within the value chain. Now, funding within the organization is obtained through consultation with the relevant arms of the organization, including the finance and accounts department. And therefore, when it comes to obtaining funding, the marketer has a duty to perform to the organization by justifying why they need to obtain the funds that they are requesting for and how they are going to put these funds to use, which will ultimately contribute towards the success of the organization. And often you need to be able to have good paperwork and perhaps a presentation on this paperwork that details a good justification for why you have to obtain this funding in the amounts that you are asking for. Therefore, if the e-marketer wants to obtain certain funds to finance their e-marketing activities, perhaps obtain some form of technology, perhaps buy a whole customer relationship management system, being the CRM system, to be able to use in the organization, perhaps buy some server space, perhaps buy space in a cloud, perhaps pay for a website to be developed. These are all things that require funding. And the e-marketing plan is the best way in which you can convince all the stakeholders involved as to why you have to be able to obtain these funds and how you are going to put those funds to use. Next, we can talk about the fact that the e-marketing plan helps you to set clear, realistic, and measurable objectives for your e-marketing activities. Why are we saying so? If you do not have an idea of where you are going, you will not be able to determine once you have gotten there, because you have no idea what it would look like if you get there. And given that the e-marketing plan is a roadmap or a guide, it helps us to be able to set clear, realistic objectives so that once we are able to achieve these objectives, you can be able to measure them and say that, yes, what we set out to achieve in the beginning, we have been able to do based on perhaps the tactics that we have used or the activities that we have performed. So that is the third importance of the e-marketing plan. Next, we can talk about the fact that the e-marketing plan helps to allocate resources and make adjustments as needed. Remember, we talked about the fact that the e-marketing plan is a dynamic document, meaning that it is not static and it can change. Therefore, in the event that the situation changes, remember we talked about the micro and macro environment. and the fact that in the macro environments, there are certain factors that occur that are beyond our control. However, we can react to these changes when they occur. Similarly, in the micro environments, there are certain factors that are within our control. However, we need to take action when changes occur within these factors to be able to ensure that we act in a timely manner to respond in a manner that will be of benefit to the organization. So once we are able to notice these changes and how they will affect our business, given the e-marketing plan that we have, we can be able to make adequate adjustments and then allocate resources as needed to respond to these changes that we have observed, so that the firm is not taking unawares, but is able to approach all these changes that are occurring in the environment in a prepared manner, be it strengths or weaknesses or opportunities or threats. The firm will be in a position to be able to respond appropriately to each of them. Likewise, the e-marketing plan guides the delivery of desired results, and these are measured by performance metrics. Because without a plan of what you're supposed to do, you will not be able to adequately determine whether you are making proper strides towards achieving the outcome that you intend to achieve. So the roadmap gives you certain pit stops that lets you know that you are on course towards achieving your objectives. And once you have been able to reach your final destination, you can use performance metrics to determine whether indeed you have been able to do so adequately. And even along the way, before you get to your final destination, at every pit stop, you can use performance metrics to determine whether you are indeed on course or whether you require a redirection to be able to ensure that you come back to the course that will lead you to the outcome that you are expecting to achieve. Okay, so Francis has posted a question. He says, can you say to some extent your plan can attract sponsors outside your organization? Yes, it can, if your organization permits it. Because it's not every organization that allows for external funding. Because once external funding comes in, for some organizations, they see it as a loss of control, and they do not like that. So depending on the policy of the organization, yes, your plan can attract some form of external funding. So I hope that answers your question, Francis. Good. Okay. Finally, in terms of the importance of the e-marketing plan, we can talk about the fact that it lays out the details for implementation of the plan through marketing management. Like I said, if you do not know where you are going and what you have to do to be able to get there, you will not be able to put in the necessary effort to be able to make sure that you are able to get to the destination that you envision. So the marketing plan is important in the sense that it helps the e-marketer to be able to know where the organization is going. And by developing their e-marketing plan along the lines of this marketing plan, they can be able to know the specific tasks that have to be performed in respect of marketing management to be able to ensure that the implementation of the various activities are done in the manner that need to be done to be able to ensure that the final outcome that they are expecting is achieved. So these 6 points that we have discussed represents the importance of the e-marketing plan and why we as e-marketers must take them seriously. So moving on, we are going to talk about the 7-step e-marketing plan. Now, these steps detail the process that we have to go through to arrive by the final blueprint, which we will call the e-marketing plan document. Now, before I go into this discussion, is there anything that anyone needs clarification on, or any question they want to ask, or any comments they want to make in relation to what we have just discussed? You have the opportunity to do so. Otherwise, can I move on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Rosalind says, Madam, please, isn't the first one similar to the 6 points with reference to the importance of e-marketing? Let's see. The first one, we talked about a roadmap to guide the firm in the direction in which is to take. And the last one, we said it details the implementation of the plan through marketing management. So the road plan tells you how you are supposed to go about everything. And marketing management, helping with the implementation process, tells you what each person must do, what task each person must perform to ensure that the point 1, which is the roadmap, is achieved. So they are not the same. I hope that answers your question, Rosalind. Rosalind, are you there? I hope your question is answered. Okay, all right. So let's proceed. Now, the 7-step e-marketing plan is made up of 7 steps, like the name suggests. The first step being the situation analysis, which we talked briefly about in one of our lectures last week. The next step involves the e-marketing strategic planning, followed by the generation of objectives, followed by the e-marketing strategy formulation, and then the implementation plan, the budgeting, and then evaluation plan. Now we are going to take each of these one after the other, and then we will elaborate on them. Now let's first talk about the situation analysis. Now, from our lecture last week, can someone briefly tell us what we said when we talked about the situation analysis? Briefly. Someone should volunteer or I will nominate. Okay. Gloria Odampton, can you help us? What did we say last week when we talked about the situation analysis? Gloria Odampton, are you there? Hannah, you can keep your hand up. Gloria Odampton, are you there? Gloria, you have to respond. Otherwise, I'll assume you are ghosting, which means you are absent. All right, you're there. So can you help us briefly by summarizing what we said last week? You are in the library. How can you go for a lecture in the library when you know you're expected to talk? You're expected to participate in class, so why are you in the library? Gloria. Okay, Hannah, go ahead.
Last week, you said the situation analysis is the collection of information about an organization's external and internal resources.
Okay.
To enable a strategy.
Okay.
As the time goes.
Okay, so that's good, Hannah, right? So generally, Hannah told us some aspects of the situation analysis, which involves monitoring the firm's internal and external environment, right? But we went on to also talk about the fact that the firm's internal and external environment is not enough to be able to give them an adequate picture of the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats that they may face. So they need to look at it from a wider angle by consulting it from the perspective of the micro and macro environment. So when we talk about the micro and macro environment, we discuss the various aspects of it and how the stakeholders and the actors within this environment and the changes that take place within these environments can affect the firm. So in terms of the e-marketing plan or the e-marketing planning process, the first step involves a situation analysis where you do 3 main things. The first one being to review the firm's environment, right, which we discussed last week, including the micro and macro environment, and then perform a SWOT analysis, which will tell you about the strengths and weaknesses, as well as the opportunities and threats that exist within these environments, which could potentially affect your e-marketing strategy and decision-making. The next step is to review the existing marketing plan and any other information that can be obtained about the company and its brands. Now, I put this question to the class. Why is it important for us to review the existing marketing plan and any other information that can be obtained about the company and its brands? I explained this a few minutes ago. I want to see those who are paying attention. Why does the e-marketer need to look at the firm's marketing plan and the firm's information regarding their brands? Anyone? You can raise your hand. I'll give you the opportunity to speak. Otherwise, I'll start nominating. Hannah, you've already spoken. Okay, go ahead. Frida, you can keep your hand up. Yes, Hannah, go ahead.
When the company reviews its market plan, it's able
Yeah.
to know if it's on course or not.
Hannah, your voice
And
is not clear.
oh, sorry. When the
Yeah.
company reviews its existing market plan,
Okay,
along
so
the
here
way,
the
it's
company
able
is not reviewing. Oh, Hannah, listen clearly. The company is reviewing the marketing plan. It's the e-marketer who is reviewing the company's marketing plan and other information about the company, especially as it relates to its brands. Right? So you need to get that clear.
Okay. Thank
Good.
you. So
You're welcome,
basically,
Hannah.
it's able to know if it's still on course with the plan it made, or the e-marketer, the plan the e-marketer made.
Okay. I think you're getting a few things mixed up and it's affecting your explanation of it. All right, let's hear back from Frida and then we'll figure it out, Hannah. But thank you for the attempt. Frida, go ahead.
Madam, please, I wanted to say that it helps the e-marketer to adjust its plan so that if in case there is any change in the external environment, he or she can be able to adjust its plan based on the changes that have been made.
Okay. It seems you are also a bit confused. So it's affecting your explanation of it. You're thinking of it in terms of steps that progressively follow each other, but they are both progressive steps that relate to a bigger goal, right? So think about it. Why are we reviewing the firm's marketing plan when we are supposed to be developing an e-marketing plan? Why do we have to review the firm's overall marketing plan, as well as the firm's information and their brands, right? Let's see a few comments in the chat section. Francis says because of maybe the challenges the organization would face or based on consumers' preference. Not really, Francis. I think you need to have a rethink about this one. Derek Dogbe says because the e-marketing plan is a subset of the overall marketing plan, and any strategies under the e-marketing plan should conform to the overall marketing plan. In fact, in a nutshell, Derek, that is exactly what it is. So Derek has been able to hit the nail right on the head. I said earlier that the e-marketing plan is a subset of the overall marketing plan. So we need to make sure that we review the existing marketing plan so that we know how to develop our e-marketing plan for it to conform, right, to what already exists. Rosalind, you said you think it will, there's a word missing there, I believe. The e-marketer have control over his plan. Okay, I believe now based on Derek's submission, we all know what it should be. Emmanuel says it helps the e-marketer to know the objectives of the company and then make a plan in line with it. Yes, Emmanuel, you're also right. So Emmanuel is also spot on. Yeah, Charlotte Mensah says so that the e-marketer will have a clear chain with the firm's overall marketing plan. Yes, Charlotte, you're also right. So in essence, we are saying that you need to know the general direction in which the organization is moving in terms of their marketing. So you can be able to develop your marketing plan to conform accordingly, right? So the e-marketing plan cannot be developed outside of the firm's existing marketing plan. It has to be in line with it, right? Good. So move on. The third level in terms of the situation analysis involves reviewing the firm's e-business objectives, strategies, and performance metrics. Because again, the e-marketing plan needs to conform to the overall e-business strategy of the firm, because the firm has some objectives with regard to the application of these digital technologies within the value chain. So we need to be able to know their objectives and strategies that they have developed and the performance metrics that they have put in place to be able to build our e-marketing plan around these objectives and strategies, as well as these performance metrics, to be able to know if we are indeed on course towards helping the firm achieve its overall e-business objectives. And with that, we've come to the end of the step one, which involves conducting a situation analysis. Now, beyond the situation analysis, okay, so this is a model of the e-marketing environment to be able to provide some perspective regarding the point one under the situation analysis in step one, which involves reviewing the macro and macro environment. I believe it's a stark reminder of what we discussed last week about the importance of these two environments and how they influence the firm's activities, such that a situation analysis and continuous environmental scanning are required for the firm to stay on top of matters. So we talked about the SWOT analysis under the step 1 in the situation analysis stage, right? And the SWOT analysis usually involves an analysis of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the organization, right? And we said that strengths and weaknesses are internal to the organization, whereas opportunities and threats are external to the organization. Now on our screen, we can see a sample SWOT analysis performed for Amazon in its initial stages before it became the huge Amazon that we know today. And before Amazon became this huge company that we know, they were just a group of developers and tech people who saw a gap in the market and decided to fill it, right? And to be able to know how best they could fill this gap, they decided to perform a SWOT analysis to know where they stood in order to know how best to proceed. Now, based on the outcome of the SWOT analysis, they realized that their strengths lied in the fact that they were a group of smart and talented tech people who were focused, right? And they knew what they were looking for. And the gap that they had identified in the environment based on their research showed that they have a strength, given that at that time, there were very few booksellers online. In fact, there were virtually no booksellers online. So there was less of a potential for channel conflict in the event that they decided to go full-blown into the business of selling books online. However, they identified a huge weakness, which was the fact that they had no experience selling books, boxing books for shipment, or processing credit card transactions, which were at that time the primary means by which people could purchase items remotely, right? At the same time, too, they saw some threats externally, being that there was a large bookstore chain that had launched a full-scale push to claim the online book market, but they had not made significant strides in that direction yet, right? Similarly, they saw a huge threat. Even though the bookstores had not made plans to move in that direction, they were heading there. So Amazon saw that as a threat, because once they have the idea in their minds, it was only a matter of time before they caught up to it and caught up to Amazon and what their model was. At the same time, too, there was a threat of data security and foreign exchange rate fluctuations. Remember, we talked about the fact that because of foreign exchange rate issues, Amazon operates a number of unique websites to certain geographic locations to be able to make sure that they can serve the customers there using their own currencies, right? But when selling to customers in different markets, you need to bear in mind that the exchange rate between the currency that you are selling your product in and the currency that exists in that market could have a significant effect on the price that you charge for the items that you are selling. In that regard, it is very important for them to pay attention to this issue. And at the same time, too, data security was an issue because at that time, they had not come to the level where we are now, where there were so many checks and balances in place to be able to protect consumers from having their credit card information stolen online or from having their details taken online. So data security was an issue. However, they saw one huge opportunity, which was the fact that majority of the larger bookstore chains, like Barnes and Noble at that time, even though they had thought of the fact that there was a need to start selling books really online, had not made significant strides towards doing it. So based on the strengths and opportunities that they saw, they realized that the weaknesses and threats were no match compared to what they stood to gain if they went ahead and took the gamble based on the strengths and opportunities they had identified. And that birthed the online book selling platform that today has become the global giant when we talk about digital marketing in general. So this is an example of a SWOT analysis for a firm that went on to become one of the largest online businesses that we know of today. And with that, we've come to the end of step 1. And we've seen how, in a nutshell, a simple situation analysis can lead a firm to start what could one day become a huge enterprise based on a correct and complete assessment of their strengths and weaknesses, as well as their opportunities and threats. So a situation analysis is by no means something that firms have to take for granted, let alone e-marketers, right? Because we are working towards achieving the overall goals of the firm. So in step 2, Once we have conducted our situation analysis, pardon me, we have to go into the process of e-marketing strategic planning. And here, strategic in terms of the fact that we now have to start the planning process, using the top to bottom approach. And here we determine the fit between the organization's objectives, starting at the top, right? The skills and resources and its changing market opportunities, because we need to think about the fact that the context within which the firm is operating, based on the conditions in the micro and macro environments, can determine the firm's objectives, its skills and resources, and the opportunities that are available to the firm to take advantage of, right? So at this stage, based on the analysis that the e-marketer has done, they conduct what we call a market opportunity analysis. And here, the e-marketer looks at all the opportunities that are available to the firm that will help them to be able to develop concrete e-marketing objectives to help the firm achieve the objective of meeting these opportunities and taking advantage of them to be able to earn good profit. So the market opportunity analysis here is very important, because the e-marketing plan, without being able to identify the opportunities that are available to the firm, cannot be able to utilize the various e-marketing tools available to help the firm to achieve these objectives. Emmanuel, your hand is up. Come in. Emmanuel.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, please, what differentiates the MOA from the opportunities that is analyzed in the SWOT analysis for the first stage? This is a repetition of the process.
Okay, so that's a good question. Now, the opportunities that are identified in the SWOT analysis are myriad, because you're looking at all the opportunities in general. But here you are specifically looking at the opportunities that are available that e-marketing can help the firm to take advantage of. So whereas in the SWOT analysis, you are looking at all opportunities in general, right? Including general marketing objectives and opportunities that you can be able to use to take advantage of using those objectives. With the market opportunity analysis, you are zooming in specifically on those marketing opportunities that the e-marketing technologies or the e-marketing tools can help you to be able to achieve, right? So for instance, if you see an opportunity in the market where there's a new product that is being sold and customers are jumping onto the product so much that the firm is afraid that they will lose their market share, there should be that is a market opportunity that has happened, even though that is a threat. Sorry. All right. Let me give you an opportunity example. So there's a new product that your company has launched onto the market. And once it launched onto the market, there was this new group of customers that emerged in the macro environment that had taken a liking to the product, right? So you have identified the fact that there's a niche group. They are not that many, they are few, but then they have taken a strong liking to your firm's product such that they are talking about it everywhere and promoting it as much as they can through their own personal means. Now, this is an opportunity that you have identified. The firm had nothing to do with it. Some group of customers somewhere just took advantage of the product being launched and decided to hop onto it. Now, in this case, there's a marketing opportunity. Iman, I put this question to you. In this scenario that I have given, what e-marketing objective can you formulate to take advantage of this opportunity? Assuming you're an e-marketer and you realize that this small group of customers have taken advantage of the launch of this product and they are enjoying it so much. How can e-marketing take advantage of this?
Madam, if I were in the position, I would do one of two things. The first is that I would make sure I have the data of this specific customers, and so I can create a reward system for they being very patriotic to my product.
Good. Hold on. Hold on. Yeah. So you would obtain their data.
Yes, ma'am.
How would you obtain it?
This is e-marketing, most likely through social media and what have you.
Good. So now is your question answered.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. All right. So that's a typical example of how you can spot an opportunity and then use e-marketing to address it. So in this case, the e-marketing objective will be to be able to obtain the data of this niche group of customers. And how is he going to do that? He's going to use social media, right? So we are going to delve deeper into this small scenario that we just discussed and break it down further for you to understand all the myriad things that it entails. Okay, so with e-marketing strategic planning, we've talked about the market opportunity analysis that we have to conduct, and then formulating e-marketing objectives based on the market opportunity analysis that we identify. Now, following from the scenario that I just gave, right? Remember we talked about the fact that in this scenario, there was a niche group of customers that was using your firm's product, and you wanted to use e-marketing to take advantage of them, right? That is one of the main things that comes up when we are doing e-marketing strategic planning, because we need to be able to understand the groups of customers that are purchasing the firm's products or patronizing their services. And to be able to do this properly, we need to first of all segment the market by breaking it up into specific groups of customers, because like I just explained to Emmanuel, when we look at opportunities, in the general SWOT analysis, we can spot opportunities that exist within various customer segments, right? But we will not be able to take advantage of all these customer segments because we do not have unlimited resources. Our resources are limited. So in our market opportunity analysis, we are looking out specifically for that market segment that we have enough resources to be able to target and target profitably, right? And that brings us to the next stage of targeting. So when we are targeting, how will we use e-marketing to be able to target these customers? Emmanuel, in our small scenario, told us that he's going to use social media, but social media is so broad and gives us a lot of capabilities. And very soon we'll go into some of these capabilities that social media affords us and how we can be able to use it to achieve these objectives, such as targeting, right? Or getting to know more about the customers that we intend to serve. And once you target this customer base, sorry, you need to bear in mind that you are not the only firm that is targeting them. Because we talked about the Porter's 5 competitive forces, and we learned about the fact that there's always going to be competition. And therefore, with the presence of competition, you want to make sure that you take the necessary strides to differentiate yourself from your competition, and hence the stage of differentiation. Because we have to make sure that we stand out in the crowd. We have to make sure that we are set apart, such that our customers that we are targeting can be able to identify us and zone in on our product and service to purchase it over and above those of our competitors. And to be able to gain the attention of your customers such that in the myriad or the sea of competitors that we have, we always stick out and get the customer's attention, leading to a purchase. We need to position ourselves. And positioning is about the brand of the company holding a specific, unique place in the mind of the consumer, such that in every purchasing situation for a particular need, your product or brand will come up first in the mind of the consumer, because you have positioned yourself as the best product or service to be able to satisfy that need that the customer has identified. So e-marketing strategic planning involves the tasks of segmentation, targeting, differentiation, and positioning. Because once you have been able to conduct your market opportunity analysis, it helps you to be able to identify the specific customer segments that you can target with your offering based on the opportunities that you identified, and how to use e-marketing to be able to achieve these objectives of targeting, segmentation, differentiation, as well as positioning your brand to be able to make sure that it stands out from the sea of competitors that we have over the online medium. Now, once you have been able to finish your e-marketing strategic planning, right, where you were able to determine the opportunities that you want to take advantage of and the specific customer segments that you want to target, you go into what we call the development of objectives. Now, generally, the objective in an e-marketing plan take a form that include the aspects of one, the task that you have to perform, meaning what is to be accomplished. And then the measurable quantity, how much of it should be accomplished, because without quantifying a task, it makes it very vague. And you do not know how much effort you have to be able to put in to be able to ensure that that task is completed. So it's not enough to just have the task. You need to be able to quantify that task. So for instance, if you want to be able to get to know about your customers, how do you want to know about them? How do you quantify this information you need to know about them? Do you need to know about their gender? Do you need to know about their location? Do you need to know about their values, their lifestyles, their psychographic preferences? All of these things are quantities that you can use to quantify the kind of task that you need to achieve. So if you want to be able to know their gender, their demographics, their consumption patterns, and perhaps their payment options, by the time you have quantified it this way and you have achieved all these four, you know that the task accomplished. But it is not enough to have a task and to be able to quantify it. You need to be able to give yourself a time frame. Otherwise, you will spend forever on the same task when perhaps at some point that task has become outmoded and it's not contributing in any way towards achieving your overall objectives as a firm. So you need to be able to have a time frame as well. And that is why we say that objectives have to be developed using the SMART criteria. Please, who knows about the SMART acronym and the criteria that it refers to that every objective must possess? Who has heard of the SMART acronym? S-M-A-R-T. And what does the acronym stand for? I know by now you all know of the acronym because you're in level 400. Gideon, go ahead. Gideon, go ahead.
Yes, madam. Please, I know this, the S stands for specific.
Okay.
The M
Another
stands
person
for
should.
measurable.
Okay, so Gideon, you've mentioned two. You said the S stands for specific, the M stands for measurable. Okay, can someone continue? Samuel, say, thank you, Gideon.
Yes,
Samuel,
madam.
say, what does the A stand for?
Madam, is the A stands for attainable.
Good. Lauren, what does the R stand for? Thank you, Samuel. Lauren, what does the R stand for? Lauren. Lauren. Lauren is gone. Emmanuel Obi, what does the R stand for?
Realistic.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure it's realistic? Are you sure it's realistic?
Relevant.
Good. Relevant. Realistic is synonymous to achievable. Right? So relevant. Good, Emmanuel. And then the last one, is it Davita? Yes, Davita. What's the last one? Davita, what's the last one? What does the T stand for?
Timely.
Timely or time-bound or time-based, right?
Timely.
Yes. So you're right, Davita.
Yes.
Good. So timely, right? Timely or time-bound or time-based, whichever one, it has to do with time. So that means that your objectives have to be specific. You need to state in very clear terms what it is that you hope to achieve. Also, whatever you hope to achieve should be measurable, right? That is why we said the task should be quantified so that you can be able to measure it to know whether or not you have been able to perform that task to completion. At the same time, too, it should be achievable, right? You should not spread yourself so thin that you are putting in place objectives that we all know, based upon hearing them, these objectives are impossible to achieve within the time frame that you are hoping to do them, right? And at the same time, too, they should be relevant. That is why before you set all these objectives, you have to have reviewed the firm's overall e-business strategy, the firm's overall marketing plan, the firm's overall corporate objectives, so that you can be sure that whatever objective that you are setting is relevant to what the organization has set for the direction that they are moving in, right? So finally, we talk about the fact that it should also be time-bound or time-based or timely. You can't spend your whole time, the whole fiscal year, working at achieving one objective, because you need to be able to work incrementally towards achieving the overall goal of the firm. So you have to make sure that you put in place objectives that you can achieve within specified periods of time, so that you can be able to move on to other things that will culminate towards achieving the firm's overall objectives, right? By contributing to the firm's e-business strategy, as well as the firm's overall e-marketing plan. So that is it for objectives. So once you set your objectives, you now have to think about the strategies that you are going to put in place to achieve these objectives, right? So here, marketers usually craft strategies regarding the marketing mix and relationship management, because you have to make sure that whatever you are doing is meeting customer expectation, right? And these two are put together in order to be able to achieve the objectives that were stated in the previous stage when we talked about developing SMART objectives to take advantage of the opportunities that we have identified, right, in our e-marketing strategic planning stage. So with regard to formulating strategy, the marketer usually starts with the most basic tools that are available to them, which is the 4 Ps. In the case of a service organization, we can talk about the 7 Ps. However, when it comes to the online medium, because of its faceless nature, we always apply the 7 Ps. Because whether you are selling a physical product online or you are selling a service online, because there is a lack of physical contact, the service that you are selling online or the product that you are selling online, all in essence behave like you are delivering a service, because there is no actual physical exchange that takes place. So we use the 7 Ps in all scenarios to be able to ensure that we are doing the most in terms of e-marketing strategy to convince customers to patronize the brand's products or services online. However, the basic tools that the marketer will always revert back to are the 4 Ps, which have to do with the product being whatever it is that they are offering by way of a physical product or a service, the value that they are asking for this product in terms of pricing strategies, as well as the distribution and supply chain activities involved in getting this product to the final consumer if it is a physical product. And then if it is a service, all the processes involved in the delivery of this service to the customer. And then finally, the issue of communication, which has to do with all the promotional strategies that the e-marketer uses to be able to communicate to their audience, be it potential or current customers, about the brand's offering and how best they can take advantage of them. So in developing an e-marketing strategy, we can utilize what we refer to as the RACE framework. Now, the RACE framework generally has to do with 4 stages, right? Based on the RACE acronym. The R standing for reach, the A standing for act, the C standing for convert, and the E standing for engage. Now, remember that the first stage is called the plan stage, which involves defining the goals and the strategy. And that is what we talked about when we started from step 1, where we did the situation analysis, step 2, where we did the e-marketing strategic planning, step 3, where we did the objective formulation, and now where we are with the e-marketing strategy formulation. So in formulating the strategy, you need to be able to formulate it such that it helps you to move through these 4 stages in an incremental manner, such that you start from the objective of enhancing your reach, followed by enhancing action, followed by enhancing conversions, and then followed by enhancing engagement. Now, at each of these levels, there are specific objectives that the firm hopes to achieve. And we are going to go through these one after the other. Now, with regard to reach, the idea here is for the firm to generally build awareness and create a huge audience for the product or service that they are offering. Now, the enhancement of your reach relies mainly on your ability to communicate effectively online as an e-marketer. And to be able to communicate effectively, the e-marketer uses a combination of paid, owned, and earned media. Please, has anyone heard of paid, owned, and earned media communication? Has anyone heard of them before? When we say a company is using paid media, or the company is using owned media, or the company is using earned media. What does it mean? Gideon, your hand is still up. Is it in relation to this question? Kobe Kumsin, you say you've heard it. Okay, so can you
Yes,
tell us
madam.
about them? Yes, okay, so go ahead and tell us about them.
So in marketing, companies have various platforms on which they get their word out. So for the paid media, it's usually on platforms where they are, as the word goes, paying for their word to get out. So that can be a press release that they pay for in the newspaper, or even using any of the social media channels to pay for stuff. And then owned media are the platforms they own themselves. So that is like their websites, their social media pages.
Okay,
And
Kobe,
then
let me
earned
stop you
media
there.
is usually when...
Let me stop you. When you say paid media and in terms of social media, can you elaborate? Elaborate on how social media can serve as paid media.
Yes, so as part of the business offerings that most of the social media platforms have, you can pay to promote particular posts, or pay to get people to get on your pages. So that is the aspect of social media that qualifies as paid. Yeah.
Okay.
And in the owned space, just you putting content on your social media classifies as the owned media.
Okay.
And earned media is usually the external media that you get. For example, when you put out a new product and other websites come to cover it without you having to pay or ask them to do it. That is what earned media is.
Good. Thank you very much, Kobe Kumsin. So Kobe has really summarized the whole thing for us, right? So paid media is essentially, like he said, the ones that the firms pay for. So when they pay for a television advert, they pay for a social media post, right? They pay for a banner advert to be able to be posted on someone's website on their behalf. They pay for sponsored ads. These are all paid forms of media, right? And owned media is where the firm actually owns the communication medium and controls the content that is put out through the medium. So again, their social media pages are forms of owned media. Their websites are forms of owned media. If the company has any blogs, these are all forms of owned media. And then earned media are media that they do not pay for, but they earn, perhaps because they did something that caught the attention of a customer or a particular influencer, or somebody who just wanted to give the company props for doing a good job. That's earned media. Now, Patience, you said what? Paid media in terms of sponsorships, paid advertisements. Okay, I put this question to the class. Patience says paid media in terms of sponsorships and paid advertisements. Is this correct? Is this correct?
Madam, please, can you say that again?
Patience says paid media in terms of sponsorship and paid advertisements. Is she correct? Samola, say your hand is still up, or it's from a previous one. Okay. Daniel, did you want to contribute to this question? Is Patience right? Malik, are you sure? Are you sure Patience is right? Okay, is she right in part or in full? Rosalind Daku says, I think it falls under earned. Okay, so which part of her answer falls under earned media? Onyoza Icha, I think she's right in part, not in full. Okay, so Frida says advertisement, I think is correct, but in sponsorship, okay, Frida, you didn't complete your sentence. Sponsored ads is not correct. Sponsored ads, when she says sponsorship, she doesn't mean sponsored ads. Sponsored ads are different from sponsorship. Terry. Sponsorship falls under earned media, just like God's will or Yabure said, right? So sponsorship falls under earned media. Kobe, Both of them are not underpaid. Sponsorship falls under earned media. Sponsored ads are paid media. Is it clear now? So sponsorship will fall under earned media. Sponsored ads will fall under paid media, right? Because advertising is paid, just like Marian said. Please, we all understand. Okay, someone has a question. Okay, so Judah Enti, I hope I got the pronunciation right. So Judah Enti says, could radio stations airing artist songs without being paid to also be form of earned media? Yes, it is earned media because they play the song just because they like it and they think it will sound nice, so they want to share it with their listeners. So it's earned media, Judah. It becomes paid when they collect the payu. All right, Samuel Sefa says, then Doc, please, what is sponsorship? Okay, so sponsorship is not paid media, even though it often costs the firm money, right? So sponsorship costs the firm money, but they are doing it voluntarily without any prior agreement that the sponsorship that they are giving is in exchange for something. So they are doing it as a form of philanthropy, right? With no strings attached, not expecting anything in return. So when they give a sponsorship, you realize that sometimes some firms give sponsorship and they even ask to remain anonymous. They don't want to be named. Right? So in the event that the firm that voluntarily, without a prior agreement of getting anything in return, it is earned. Jindong, but there are also sponsorships that do not involve any prior agreement to obtain anything in return. Right? For instance, when the University of Ghana Business School goes to ask for companies to come and sponsor our management day, we do not give them anything in return. Do you understand? We do not give them anything in return. We just perhaps put their names on our flyers. And then we mention that they gave us this money to support. And like I said, sometimes some sponsorships too are anonymous. Yeah, we display their names, but that is not the main reason why they give us the support. Right? Samuel Sefa, let's have this discussion. Because some companies sponsor events without expecting anything in return. Emmanuel, speak. Your hand is up. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, madam. I honestly believe you when you say some companies actually sponsor without wanting anything in return. But then,
yeah,
I believe you can also count those companies with just a finger, because even when you go for sponsorship from these companies, and you give an example of the mining day, when you go to them, the only thing they ask is how well represented these companies would be for that specific program they are sponsoring, and whether it's in kind or cash, they would want to be mentioned in some way. So in to some extent, it's an exchange in that they're collecting publicity from you and then giving you money for it. So I still believe it's falls on that page, because very few companies.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that good. But what I'm saying is that it depends on how you classify it, right? So how you're explaining it now, some exchange is happening, so it's paid. But when the company gives the sponsorship without expecting anything in return, without asking for anything in return, and then the one receiving the sponsorship voluntarily decides to say something about it. Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Like recently, do you know our ultra modern computer lab that we have now? The one that was launched last week, Wednesday.
But they asked the dean to do this week for them a 1 minute Rock City, right? They asked the dean to do a 1 minute promotional video for them. So there was an exchange.
Yes. Yes, but that was not the agreement in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
They sponsored it out of their own free will for the business school.
And the whole place has been designed with Rock City everywhere. And that's also
Yes.
promotional.
Okay. Can we continue this discussion another time?
But when you go there, the door, even the door, the first thing you see is Rock. You think it's the addition office of Rock City Hotel.
Yeah, but it was yes, but it was not over. Yeah, but there was no agreement. You know what? Let's agree to disagree. But I like the banter.
One last point.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm very much aware that there are some companies that actually in their budget differentiate between sponsorship deals and then CSR activities. For example, if you take some of the banks and you speak to the managers, I'm in touch with some of them because we want sponsorship as safety app. When you go to them, they can show you their budget, and then there's a specific amount for sponsorship, and there's another amount for CSR activities. So for the CSR activities, they're the ones that they consider that they're doing it for humanity's sake, non-profit sake, you know.
Yes, but they don't like calling it CSR.
There's a new word for it.
Thank you. They don't like calling it CSR because it looks like they are just doing it to be able to earn props. So do you see where I'm also coming from?
Yes, madam. So let's agree as you said earlier.
Exactly. But the banter is good. I mean, I'm enjoying the discussion.
Why we agree to disagree?
So let's come to a common ground. Like I said in the beginning, we have come to the same pit stop, but it depends on how the agreement was done and the end goal, right? So if the agreement was overtly, we are giving you this, you have to give this to us in exchange, you can call it pay because they are paying to be able to get something in return. However, like the CSR you're talking about, where they perhaps sponsor a school building or MTN Foundation goes to sponsor an ICT lab, we can't call it paid because they did not do it expressly with the idea of getting recognition for it, right? It's implied. So whatever publicity they get from the media houses by virtue of the fact that they did it and they launched it, we can call it earned media. All right, so let's move on. So still on the issue of reach, we're talking about the fact that it enables the firm to build traffic by driving visits to their different websites, right? Like their main website or their social media page through various other online platforms. So we see firms using a lot of what we refer to as affiliate links, right? Where you see a banner ad on another website that if you click on will lead you straight to the firm's social media page or their website. You could also see an affiliate link perhaps on the page of an influencer who is in some form of agreement with the firm to promote their products and services. You could also see a link on another site pointing you directly to the firm's site to be able to go and consume that services, given that service or product, given that the firm has bought some form of ad space on their page for those purposes, right? So reach is achieved by these means. And the important reason why this is necessary is because you need to be able to maximize your reach over time. Otherwise, you will not be able to get the number of audience that you need to be able to create a buzz for your product or service, some of whom are going to later turn into actual purchasers and users of the product or service that you are promoting. So to be able to actually achieve this objective and do so in an expedient manner, you need a good combination of the paid, owned, and earned media touch points that we have just talked about. So it's not just enough to pay people to promote your products. You also need to be able to make sure that you are owning some media to be able to push the promotion agenda of your product, either through your website or through your social media page or through your mobile app or your mobile site. At the same time, to using all manner of earned media. And earned media does not just happen out of the blue, right? Earned media comes about as a result of concerted efforts in the area of paid and owned media. So by putting a banner ad on another site that leads a customer to your site, they get to know about your product. And after consuming the product or service, if they enjoy the experience that they have, they can decide to share with other people or ask other people to talk about it. Or they could go to the page where they found this information from and tag other friends to also come and experience what they have experienced. So reach can be enhanced only through a combination of these three media touch points, namely the paid media, the owned media, and the earned media. Next, we can talk about acting, right? So we have already explained paid, owned, and earned media. We talked about the fact that the paid media is the one that we pay for. The owned media is the one that the firm owns and controls the content, right? Whereas the earned media is the one that the firm does not control, right? It is voluntary communication that is done on behalf of the firm, either through word of mouth, social networks, or influencer outreach. Okay, so the next level after we have been able to enhance our reach is act. And act here is the short word for interact, right? Now it's a separate stage because after we have been able to reach these customers, we need to encourage some form of interaction between the firm and them. Because if you do not interact with them, you cannot be able to move them to the next level of being able to take some form of action regarding your product or service, either to get to know more about it or to perhaps go ahead and actually purchase the product or service. So the act level is basically about persuading the visitors to your site or the prospects that you are able to reach, right? Based on your combination of the paid, owned, and earned media, right? And this is done using many forms of online tools. You can do it through getting them to perhaps sign up for a particular service, be it sign up for a newsletter. The moment they sign up for a newsletter, there's certain information that they give to you, including their email addresses. Sometimes they request for your phone number, right? So these are ways of being able to get their information to continue the interaction. So you realize that when you sign up for a newsletter or you sign up to receive emails, the firm will then proceed to start communicating with you, pushing information regarding their products and services your way. These are all ways by which the firm is able to enhance the process of interaction. Another means by which they do so is by getting you to the site and encouraging you through various forms of engagement to be able to browse the site. And in the case of sites that actually sell products, encourage you to add things to your basket. So even if you are not in the mood or you don't have the means to purchase at the moment, they always encourage you to add the things to your basket. And sometimes when you even add the things to your basket and you forget that you have added things to your basket, occasionally you get an email reminder reminding you that you put these things in your basket and you have not paid for them yet. Has anyone received such an email before? Has anyone received such an email before? You went to a website, you tried to purchase an item, you put it in the basket, you didn't have money to buy it, or you were not convinced, and then you left it in the basket, you left the page, and you exited. That doesn't mean it's over. The firm has actually logged that information and is waiting for an appropriate time to be able to engage with you again, to do some form of interaction, to find out perhaps why you have not gone ahead to actually purchase the items and have them delivered to you, right? So for many types of businesses, they use the interaction stage to use as a means of generating leads, right? Malik says, I was even given a call. Yeah, because at that point, you have become a lead. And it is in the best interest of the firm to convert that lead into an actual sale. And that is why they will go as far as calling you to be able to find out if indeed you want to go ahead and make this thing a final purchase. So Malik, thank you for sharing. So that is it for the interact stage. Now, like I said, after the interact stage, the idea is that by the end of the interaction, you have been able to generate a good lead. And the next stage is conversion, where you actually convert these leads that you have generated, as many as they may be, into an actual sale. Because it is not enough for the customer to stop at the point where they have interacted with you so much and they know so much about the product, and the product has been put in the basket, but they have not clicked purchase. So at the convert stage, it involves getting the audience to take the vital next step after putting the item in the basket. And that is to actually click purchase and make payment for the item, right? Now, payment for the item can either take place online, where the engagement and the interaction and everything occurred, or the actual payment can take place offline, where the customer decides to migrate the entire purchase process to the brick and mortar store of the organization in question, perhaps based on their personal preferences. There are some people who always, despite what you tell them, want to be able to see the product or service that you are giving them, to be able to know that they are buying what they expect to receive, right? So that is the convert stage. And then finally, we have the engage stage. It's not enough to just convert the customer into a buyer and leave it there. After they have bought, you have to be able to develop a long-term relationship with them through enhanced customer loyalty and advocacy. Why are we saying this? The best advocates for a brand are customers who have actually experienced the brand and its products and services. And in experiencing the brand and its products and services, customers are able to be even better advertisers for the firm than the firm itself. Because in the online medium, users tend to trust communication from each other, sometimes more than the communication that comes from organizations and firms. Hence the proliferation of all these product review sites and all these brand communities online, where customers actually just go to share information and keep each other abreast of trends in the consumption of products and services, right? So the firm has to consistently engage with customers after the purchase has been done. And this can be done either through their websites or through their social presence on any of the social media platforms that they belong to, through emails. On several occasions, you make a purchase and later on they send you an email to find out if you are okay with your purchase. And they even add a survey for you to fill, to be able to detail your experience and whether or not overall you are satisfied. And sometimes they'll even ask for you to suggest what they can do better to improve the experience that you had. All of these things help you to be able to enhance lifetime customer value. Because in marketing, we always talk about the fact that it is not enough to just attract a customer to buy a product once, right? Because it costs more to be able to look for new customers to acquire than to retain existing ones. And existing ones, the longer you keep them, become more profitable as the years go on, because they become trusting of the organization, and the organization is able to migrate them to more expensive versions of the products that they are currently consuming, and actually even sell them other alternative products that they were not purchasing or using before. Frida says feedback. Yes, feedback is another form of engagement, because you want to find out from the customer what they have experienced and how you can be able to enhance that experience for the better, right? So ways of engagement can be measured by repeat actions such as repeat sale, right? Sharing content through social media. That way, you know that the customer is indeed engaging with the brand beyond the initial purchase. So some firms, to be able to ensure that the customers actually engage after the sale has taken place, they would always encourage you after you have made the sale to go back to their page and leave a comment or leave a review. These are ways by which they encourage engagement and feedback. At the same time, too, occasionally you realize that they will send you an email or a message telling you that it's been a while they heard from you, or perhaps telling you that they have new stock if you want to check it out and get something for yourself. These are all ways of engagement, right? So firms have to be able to ensure that they move beyond the process of actually converting the customer to an actual buyer towards the level of engagement, because it is through engagement that you will be able to get the customer to be able to stick with you for the long haul. Engagement can also be measured through the percentage of active customers or email subscribers, right? Sometimes you may not get all your leads to convert to actual sales, but if you're able to get them to become subscribers and stay active, and you keep the engagement lines open such that you keep communicating with them, there is a chance that in the near future, they might probably make a purchase, right? And in the event that you are able to satisfy them adequately during this purchase, they will start making recommendations to other customers about your product or service, right? It's important for you to engage, even if after the initial interaction, you were not able to convert the customer. into an actual buyer. So that is it for the RACE framework and how it can help us to be able to formulate e-marketing strategy, right? Now, in formulating the strategy and implementing it, apart from the RACE framework, which we have just discussed, we can also talk about the fact that in implementation, you need to be able to know what has to go into each of these stages of the framework. Here, you have to decide how to accomplish the objectives that you have set for yourself based on each of these levels of the strategy that you have through creative and effective tactics. So for instance, at the reach stage, we talked about the fact that you want to enhance your customer base and reach them. What creative and effective tactics are you going to use to be able to enhance this reach? Right? You also need to be able to check to ensure that the marketing organization is in place for implementation. What are we saying when we say this? We are talking about the fact that you may have a lot of lofty things that you want to do as part of your e-marketing plan. And you may have a lot of things that you want to do, perhaps in relation to the RACE framework, to be able to ensure that your objectives are achieved when it comes to reach, interactivity, conversion, and engagement. However, you can only succeed as far as the firm has enough resources to support you in this regard. So if perhaps you need an IT staff to be able to help you develop a website, or an IT staff to be able to help you to monitor the back end of your social media page, as well as the back end of your website, to be able to check that you are reaching enough customers and you are engaging with them enough and you are interacting and converting with them enough, you will not be able to achieve that objective. So you need to be able to ensure that as part of your implementation plan, the organization has all the resources that you require to do so, in terms of perhaps the staff needed, the departmental structure, the application services that you need, or perhaps certain outside firms that provide certain pivotal resources that you need to be able to ensure that your e-marketing objectives are achieved. Now, in terms of the implementation level of the e-marketing plan, we can talk specifically about the 3M resources, which detail the key resources that you need to be able to implement your marketing plan effectively. The first one being men, the second one being money, and the third one being minutes. Now we'll take them one after the other. When we talk about men, we're talking about the fact that we need to have enough men and women, being human resources, with the necessary expertise and abilities to do different tasks that we have outlined in our e-marketing plan. Because if we have the manpower, we will not be able to implement the necessary activities that we require to be able to ensure that our e-marketing objectives are achieved. So some questions we need to ask ourselves include, how many bodies are required to deal with these various tasks that we are asking to be performed? Or perhaps some of the tasks can be automated. If so, which ones? And which ones cannot be fully automated and will therefore require some form of human intervention? We need to ask ourselves all these questions as it relates to this resource. Again, we also need to ask ourselves, in terms of men, do we have enough human resources in-house to be able to perform all these tasks that we have outlined? Or we need to be able to go outside to outsource some of these tasks to external organizations who perhaps will be able to perform it by doing a better job than we ever could do as an organization. And that is it for the M element of the 3M resource model. Next, we need to talk about money, right? Everything costs money. And when we say money here, we are referring to the development of a budget, which we will discuss into further detail in the latter part of the lecture. We need actual budgets that will detail the financial implications and the cost implications of the e-marketing strategy that we are developing, because remember, marketing costs money. And I dare say that it's by far one of the most expensive arms of the organization, right? And e-marketing is no different, because e-marketing is a subsection of marketing. So under the money resource, the key question we need to ask ourselves is, do we have the money to be able to implement this lofty e-marketing strategy that we have developed? Because perhaps in the event that you are working for an SME that does not have enough financial resources, and you detail as part of your e-marketing strategy, developing a website and perhaps buying a subscription on Hootsuite to be able to monitor the social media platforms of the SME, and how it's engaging with its customers. You may not be able to do so because SMEs are not known to have that many resources to splash around, let alone dole out those huge sums to be able to build a website and be able to pay for Hootsuite to help you manage their social media content, right? So the e-marketing plan must always include a budget covering the costs that you will incur and the clear benefits that you will get from these costs, as well as the sources from which you intend to fund these costs that you have outlined. These are very important for you to have a clear direction in terms of financial resources that you are committing to your e-marketing strategy. Now, the final M has to do with minutes. And like we saw from the SMART acronym that related to the objectives, you need to be able to ensure that you have done all these things within record time. Because time is a very limiting resource. And like I said, you do not have all the time in the world to be able to implement a marketing strategy and obtain required marketing outcomes. Because while you are formulating and strategizing, your competitors are also hard at work formulating and strategizing, creating substitutes for whatever e-marketing product or strategy it is that you think you have developed. They have developed a substitute that is poised to compete with what you have. So you need to ask yourself how much time you have from putting together this strategy to implementing it to ensure that by the time you are done, you will still have a leg up on your competitors, right? So that is it for the minutes aspect of the 3M resources framework and how it can help you in your strategy implementation. Know your human resource requirements. Know the financial obligations that you have in terms of this strategy that you have developed and where you intend to get these financial resources to fund the strategy. At the same time, to know how much time you have to spend on implementing this strategy to be able to achieve the highest possible outcomes. Now, still on the implementation plan, we need to pay special attention to information gathering tactics, because it is only through gathering information on our customers, prospects, and other stakeholders that we can be able to tell whether the e-marketing strategy we have put in place is actually working. So some of the tactics we can use to gather this information include web analytics, which is a very popular means by which firms gather all manner of information about their customers and their prospects. We can also talk about cookies and feedback emails. Cookies are very common on every website now, to the point where your permission is always sought to let you know that you are being monitored and information about you is being gathered and sent to the parent organization, right? Feedback emails are also always encouraged by firms, because that is the only way you can be able to know from your customers whether the objectives that you set out to achieve in the beginning are actually being achieved. At the same time, we can talk about social media comments and likes, and these form part of what we refer to as silent social media listening, because here the firm is silent. The firm does not actually engage. However, they observe in silence the comments and likes and tags and shares that surround their brand that customers and prospects are making online. So that way you are able to have a good understanding from an objective perspective how customers and prospects actually feel about your brands, your products, and your services, and what you can do to be able to ensure that the narrative always goes in your favor. Even though that is a difficult task to achieve, you need to make sure that majority of the time your brand is being spoken about in a positive light. At the same time, to online surveys, directly asking customers to provide you with information or feedback on their experiences. It's another means by which you can be able to gather information to determine the efficiency and effectiveness of our implementation plans. So once your implementation plan is complete, like I said, you have to be able to budget. Budget being one main arm of the 3M resources that the firm has to take cognizance of if they hope to achieve success when it comes to e-marketing, right? And the key part of the plan here is to identify the expected returns from the investment, because you can't just invest money without knowing what the money is going to be used for and what you stand to gain out of the money being used for that particular activity. Now, we need to bear in mind that expected returns on the firm's investment in e-marketing can be both tangible and intangible, because a lot of the benefits that we gain, we cannot accurately measure. For instance, you cannot tell how a good customer review influenced the emotions or purchasing behavior of a customer unless you measure it, right? And most of the time, until you measure them, they are largely intangible, especially the part about emotions, because you cannot be able to accurately tell what the investment that you put into the e-marketing activity has yielded. You can only tell that perhaps it has given you a good name. And one of the main means by which we are able to quantify this intangible aspect of investing in e-marketing, creating a good reputation for a firm, is by what we refer to as goodwill. Who has heard about goodwill before? Did you do introduction to business accounting, or is it financial accounting? Because that's perhaps the first place you will hear about goodwill. Who has heard about goodwill before? Goodwill. Hannah, you have. Good. Onyoza, you also have. Good. Good. So where do we place goodwill on the balance sheet? Because I know you all did accounting. Where do we place goodwill on the balance sheet? Which section do we place it at? Where do we place goodwill on the balance sheet? Anybody? Should I nominate? Rosendaku says under intangible assets. Yes, because it is intangible, right?
Assets.
Good. What type of asset is it? I just mentioned it. Yes, Benjamin Gotin, intangible assets. So the firm gains goodwill as an intangible asset as a direct result of investing in their e-marketing strategy. Because, for instance, we invest in creating awareness for a product. The customer purchases it and uses it. And after using it, they are full of praise for the product that they start to share word of mouth about the product. Or after they use it, they get a positive image of the product, such that they would make up their minds that in any case that they have the need for a product in that particular category, your brand is the preferred brand of choice, right? These are all forms of intangible assets. Now you have to match your expected returns against your cost incurred, because it is the returns that are helping you to be able to offset the costs. So as part of developing your e-marketing plan, it behoves on you to develop a cost-benefit analysis as well, to be able to see how much resources you are investing in this by way of finances and how much benefit it is bringing you, for you to be able to know accurately whether or not what you are investing is worth what you are getting. Otherwise, it makes no sense for you to just have the funds on you and just spend them willy-nilly. Because without budgeting, you will not be able to know whether you are committing the money to the right places or not. So with that being said, once you are able to develop your budget, you have developed your implementation plan, you have developed your strategy, and you know the specific tactics that you are going to use to be able to ensure that the strategy and the implementation plan produce the required outcomes that will help you to achieve the objectives that you set in the beginning using the SMART criteria. So at the evaluation plan, we can talk about the fact that once the e-marketing plan is implemented, its success depends on continuous evaluation. Because like we said, the micro and macro environment is volatile and dynamic. It keeps changing, meaning that if you do not continuously monitor your e-marketing plan and its implementation, you may digress and be thrown off course because you have not been able to accurately determine what is actually happening with regard to the strategy that you are implementing. So e-marketers must put in place measures to process all the information that they will be gathering throughout the e-marketing plan implementation stage, right? Such that they can be able to see where they have fallen short and agree on what measures to put in place to ensure that there is peace in terms of how the firm goes about identifying where it falls short and addressing these shortcomings. Because without addressing these shortcomings, the firm will not be able to proceed. And in the event that these shortcomings are affecting the bottom line, affecting customer satisfaction, affecting the ability of the firm to be able to meet customer expectations, especially when they come to e-marketing, since that is the focus of our course, then the firm will be in trouble. So it's important to be able to obtain information and process this information and put it in the form of a report that decision makers can rely on to be able to make tangible decisions that will move the firm closer towards achieving its e-marketing objectives. So once the e-marketing plan is through, you go ahead to put together the e-marketing plan document. Okay, Manuela has a question. She says, should not the budget stage come first before the implementation of e-marketing plan, since it's necessary to know if the plan is profitable or not before implementing? Okay, so these stages I am explaining or taking us through are not supposed to happen one after the other like the way they've been explained. Some stages occur concurrently. For instance, you budget while you're strategizing, right? That's why we discussed the issue of implementation with the 3M resources. And we discussed budget first there. Because when you're developing strategy, sorry, we discussed the 3M resources under, is it implementation? Yes, we discussed it under implementation.
Yes.
Yes, so I was right. Yes, because before you start implementation, you have to be able to be budgeting as part of your strategy formulation. Some of the stages occur concurrently. So they are called the 7 steps, not because they have to be followed in successive order, but because they are steps that all have to be completed before you can have the actual e-marketing document. So whilst you're formulating your strategy, you are budgeting. Because when you're selecting strategy elements, right, and the tactics that you will use to be able to achieve the element of your strategy, you have to be able to know how much resources you have to be able to invest with regard to each specific tactic, right? So, for instance, we talk about engagement, we talk about reach, we talk about interaction. Under reach, you need to be able to ask yourself, in terms of paid media, how much are we willing to spend? I remember Emmanuel Obi told us about the fact that firms have budgeted how much they want to spend on sponsorship, how much they want to spend on CSR, right? These are all budgetary elements. So you need to know how much you want to spend on reach in terms of paid media and owned media, how much you want to be able to spend on interaction, right? In terms of placing specific content on social media pages to be able to ensure that you interact. Do you have to pay for a sponsored ad? Do you have to pay for a survey to be posted on affiliate sites to be able to get prospects to respond to the survey to ensure that you are interacting with them and then probably leading them on to the point where they become actual buyers of your product? These will cost some level of resources, which you have to budget for. At the same time, going through the conversion stage, you need some resources to be able to convert a lead to an actual buyer, right? You also need to go about engaging consumers after they have made the purchase. You need to invest some resources in it, right? Some firms will periodically send out certain forms of communication, sometimes in the form of a gift. MTN does that very well. If you are one of their postpaid customers, they have a way of always engaging you. They engage you on special occasions, like your birthday, for instance. I remember my brother-in-law is a postpaid client of MTN who, while he was in Ghana, was buying a lot of airtime from MTN. So every year on his birthday, they unfailingly sent him a gift and a birthday cake. And the last birthday he had before he left the country, I remember he got a cake from MTN and a brand new cell phone, right? As a way of engaging him to keep him loyal. And they delivered it, the relationship manager delivered it in person to him, right? That's an example of engagement, right? Only it is not taking place online, it is taking place offline, right? But you can also engage customers online. When I was living in Norway, I used to shop from certain organizations where I used to buy different items from, but I used to do it mainly online because that was where I felt comfortable. And to date, I still receive offers from them in my email. For instance, they send me an email telling me that it's been a long time I purchased, and to be able to help me along with my purchase, they are offering me a 10% discount on all the items that I'm going to buy in my basket if I make the purchase on that particular day, right? So that's an example of online engagement where they are sending you online communication, right, to be able to get you. Yes, I studied in Norway for some time. I studied e-commerce in Norway. Right now, because of Corona, we all don't know how the travel situation is going to be. But perhaps after Corona, we can see what God will do. Right? So that is an example of engaging customers online by sending me those emails, right, with those discounts in the emails. Those discounts that marketers give doesn't come for free. We customers enjoy it for free, but it actually costs the marketers money. Please, who is aware that when marketers give discounts, it costs them money? Are we all aware? Okay, Gideon has raised his hand. Good.
Yes.
It costs them money.
Yes, ma'am.
Those warranties and after sales services all cost them money, right? So these are all forms of resources that you have to budget for when you are engaging, because at the engagement stage, you have to decide the specific tactics. If the tactic involves offering discounts, how much resources are you committing to the discounts that you are offering? If you are going to give warranties, how much resources are you committing to the warranties that you are offering, right? So I believe the question has been answered abundantly at this point, Manuela. Samosefa says customers actually think that the fact that they get something for free means the company also gets it for free. I know, right? That's why I was asking that. I hope everyone knows that when marketers give all these rebates, it actually costs them money. Onyoza, you said, don't they make the money back? Not always. Amazon is one of the companies that specializes in losing money to be able to gain customers over time. And some of the money that they lose, they don't gain back, right? But they are investing it towards something else in future. So perhaps they may make the money back, but not immediately and not directly. And perhaps they may make something back, but it may not be tangible money. They may lose money to be able to earn something intangible, like goodwill, like brand image or good reputation, right? You may complain to a service provider about bad service, and then they'll ask you to come back for a full redo of the entire service at no cost, right? They are losing in the sense that you are not paying anything for the full package that you are receiving yet again, right? But they are gaining something else, which is not financial, which is perhaps a good service recovery, which is going to enhance their image. Francis, you can send me an email, or you can send me a WhatsApp, or you can give me a phone call. Any one of them that you prefer. Samuel Sefai says, because of giveaways on Instagram, customers have become very entitled nowadays. Oh, yes. And those giveaways actually cost the people who do them money, right? But they are doing it because they want to be able to make sure that the customers keep coming back. Giveaways are one of the means by which e-marketers engage. It's one of the means by which e-marketers convert, right? It's also one of the means by which e-marketers, because some of the giveaways have to do with buy this and get this free. Buy this and get this 30% off. Please, have you seen those giveaways? Buy this and get this free. They're giving it to you for free, but you have to do something to get it. And all these things cost the marketer resources. So you have to be able to budget across all these stages, right? Okay. So that being said, What are the sections of the e-marketing plan? So the e-marketing plan as a document starts with an executive summary. And the executive summary is basically the entire document summarized into a one-page write-up, telling us generally what is covered in the entire document, touching briefly on all the important sections within the e-marketing plan document itself. Then we go to the next section. We talked about the situation analysis. So you have to give us a situation analysis based on what we talked about in the beginning, the review of the micro and macro environment, the review of the firm's marketing plan, the review of the firm's e-business strategy, to be able to determine what the current situation is. Because the review of the marketing environment, be it micro and macro, will be able to tell you what challenges lie ahead, what opportunities lie ahead, what threats lie ahead, what strengths and weaknesses lie ahead, right? Situation analysis will also tell us what the firm's marketing plan is and how e-marketing can be able to support that. So based on that, you come out with the next section, which is referred to as the objectives and strategy section. Based on the situation analysis that you conducted, after what you learned about the micro and macro environment, the strengths and weaknesses you identified, the opportunities and threats that you saw, the firm's general marketing plan and what they hope to achieve, the firm's e-business plan and what they hope to achieve, what objectives are you setting for your e-marketing strategy, right? So you highlight the objectives and then the strategy that you are going to be using to achieve these objectives. And then that will bring us to the next section where you talk about your implementation tactics. Based on the objectives that you have developed and the strategy that you have outlined, what specific tactics are you going to use to be able to achieve them? So for instance, your objective is perhaps to be able to enhance the followers on your firm's social media page up to about 100,000. And the strategy you want to use is giveaways. So what tactics are you specifically going to use in terms of these giveaways? So the tactics could be perhaps you will do a giveaway every month. And in these giveaways, you will make sure that the customer buys something to be able to get something for free. Or in these giveaways, you will make sure that the customer tags a number of people and gets all of them to come and follow the page before they have access to get this free product you are giving as part of the giveaway. These things I have spoken about are all implementation tactics that you are going to use to achieve the objective of growing your followers, the strategy of giveaways, right? Please, does it make sense?
Yes, madam.
Good. So in the end, you are going to now tell us the budgets that you have for all these activities, right? What budgets do you have for the strategies and the implementation tactics you have identified? You have perhaps you have a budget of 10,000 for the giveaways, and then maybe you are allocating 50,000 to the giveaways that involve you are allocating 5,000 to the giveaways that involve buy one get one free, and then you are allocating another 5,000 to the giveaways that involve the customer having to tag other users and getting them to come and follow the page. And then you come up with your evaluation plan. How are you going to evaluate all these tactics that you are implementing? And the evaluation plan is usually tied in with the objective that you had at the beginning. So if your objective was to be able to enhance the followers up to 10,000, when you are evaluating, you need to look at how many followers the page has been able to grow to within the time frame. Because remember, the objectives have to be time bound. So if you are growing the followers to 10,000, is it within 2 months or 1 month or 3 months? By the time the 3 months is over, your evaluation plan should be able to look at your objective was 10,000 by the end of 3 months. But based on evaluation, where are we now? Perhaps we are at only about 6,800 at the end of the 3 months. So what do we have to do to be able to get to the 10,000? Perhaps extend the period to another 2 months, right? And add another strategy. Perhaps not giveaways, right? Perhaps a competition to be able to reach the target that we set for ourselves, right? And once you finish with the evaluation plan, you're going to go ahead and provide any references you used to be able to highlight all the sections and the content of each section that you have presented. So evaluation plan should be able to tell us, how are you going to go about ensuring that you have achieved your objectives? So your evaluation plan, the objective says that we are supposed to get to 10,000 by 3 months. How are we going to evaluate it? Are we going to have a 1 month check-in? So we'll check every month to see how many we have gotten to. And if after 1 month we have not been able to reach, say, up to 5,000, then we add the strategy of competitions. If after 2 months we have not been able to cross 8,000, we stop the giveaways, stop the competition, and start using paid adverts. These are all evaluation plans that you are using to ensure that the objectives that you have formulated and the strategy that you have formulated are all moving towards achieving the overall objective that you have set for yourselves. And with that, we've come to the end of today's lecture. Is there any question that you have to ask? Anything you need clarification on before we go ahead? Because I'm going to give you some specific instructions relating to your e-marketing plan assignment.